Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm James.
And welcome to the Cornwall Property Podcast, where every week we bring you the latest news, hot topics and guidance around the Cornwall property market.
Stay tuned to be informed, inspired and to have any of your property related questions answered by trusted local property professionals.
Welcome.
Here we are.
Episode 18 of the Cornwall Property Podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm James.
And we are here to inform, educate and inspire you guys all about property with a particular emphasis on the Cornwall property market. So we are here, we know there's a whole Cornwall housing crisis and we want to help educate and motivate you guys to get involved and help to bridge this issue essentially with ourselves here. So James, what can people do to get in touch?
Very easy. They can go on to online on cornwallpropertypodcast.com, go onto the front page there. They can scroll down to the bottom and send us a message directly there, or as many of you do, go to our social media platforms on Facebook and they can send us a message that way. And also if you want to do email, you can go hello@cornwallpropertypodcast.com and send us a message in there that way, as many of you do. And this week's podcast is all about you guys, your turn really to ask us questions about property so that we can help in any way that we can. So without further ado, I shall start with our first question that we've got from Simon in Zelah in Cornwall. You refer a lot to GDVs, gross development values, and how important are they to a development? Can you share why they are so important and how you calculate a GDV, please? Good question.
Very good question. And thank you, Simon. Thank you very much for getting in touch, Simon. So GDV, gross development value. I think a lot of it comes down to what your end goal is in terms of what are you wanting to do with property. Are you wanting to just buy this property and hold it for a long term and not do anything with it? You've got cash sat in the bank and maybe the GDV isn't too much of a problem with you. You're happy you've just got cash there, want to make it work, just going to buy a property, leave it in there for many, many years and it's going to be a pension. Brilliant. GDV probably won't even matter to you. But for particular strategies, like for example, James and myself, we work with investors, private investors, where they will lend us money and we will give them a return on their investment. And with their money, we will then purchase a property. We will purchase it at a particular price. We will add value for a refurbishment. And our aim is to try and get the end value of that development as high as we possibly can. So that end value is called a gross development value. That is the holy grail for us as such, because we need to get that end value as high as we possibly can. Because what we do, as I mentioned, we will borrow money. So for example, James was my investor. James would lend me money to purchase the property and then to refurbish a property. What I need to do then is add enough value to that project so that when I've done and I'm finished, I can then get a valuation done and get a mortgage on the property at the end. So, for example, we've just done a development ourselves in Mevagissey. So we bought it at a particular price. We've added the value as much as we can. And we have now got a valuer coming out, a surveyor, to come and tell us what they feel the end value and currently is now. What is it worth today? So we will then get a mortgage on it at that price. And then we will then get a 75% loan to value mortgage. So they won't give you 100% of that value, of course. So we need to make sure that 75% of that overall value is enough to pay everyone back. So the end value is really, really important for us in this instance, Simon, because we need that end value to be as high as possible to ensure that we can pay everyone back. So the GDV, the gross development value, is simply what do we think the property and the project is going to be worth at the end of all the works. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what it actually is and how important it is for us, because that is the holy grail for us in making sure we can pay everyone back. But the hardest bit is obviously trying to work out what the gross development value will be, because that's really where the biggest risk is, I feel, James. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly if you are getting into a game where you're not holding it on for a long time and you are going to be, selling the properties to doing it as a flip, as we've talked about before, then those numbers are really, really important. And it's also, getting to that gross development value. Well, that's all great and well when the valuer comes out and you finish the project. But if that valuer has told you, it's actually 50 grand less than what you anticipated, then you need to be doing some due diligence and homework before you buy that property. And I think, to get that GDV, you can only do that by looking on Rightmove, find the property that you want to buy, and scroll down a few sections, and you'll see nearby sold prices, and that's where you can see the comparables. And that is, really, that's the template that those valuers will be using, where they give you that gross development value, because they can see that number 35 next door and number 38 across the road have sold for this price, and then you can justify, well, that's why this property, because it is exactly the same as that. It's a 3 or 4 bedroom terrace, and I've bought well, and that's what it should be worth now. So yeah, very, very important, but always do your homework. And it's a bit like God forbid you're not in a divorce settlement, but if you are and you're going to court, it is how the barrister feels on that day to some degree. They might be in a good mood. Most people tell me you want to go on divorce settlements on a Friday because they feel in a bit of a better mood, but it really is that serious. If you get a valuer that comes out and is having a bit of a bad day, then you could be in a bit of trouble. So really bag the contingency in, I would say.
Definitely, and that's something we do in amples, because it's so important, especially when you're using other people's money. But even if it's your own, it is so important to make sure you can pay back. And calculating that GDV, always be skeptical. And I personally, for us and our business, I always go under what we feel. So say, for example, there's examples on the street. So say we're looking at a 3-bedroom end terrace, or a 3-bedroom terrace house. And if I go on, as James has said, go on Rightmove, go on the nearby sold prices, look at similar properties on the street. If there's nothing on the street, then go for a quarter of a mile out of that location. If there's nothing, still half a mile, but I wouldn't want to go too much more than half a mile out. And with regards to duration, as close to now, for example, I want to see something sold in the last 6 months, ideally. Worst case, a year. I wouldn't really want to go too much further than a year, because a lot can change in a year. But if you have to, you obviously will. But the key there is just trying to get as accurate a figure as possible. But if, for example, they're all coming out and saying, well, number 35, as James said, is just sold for, I don't know, pick out the air, 350,000. Number 38 across the road is just sold for 360,000. I personally would always go with the 350,000 just to kind of cover my backside as such. And anything higher, brilliant. It's a nice Brucey bonus. But yeah, always be on the safe side. That's all I can really empathise for you there.
Definitely. And if you, sorry to interrupt that, but if you are doing a development and it's supposed to take 4 months, let's be honest, most developments come over some turbulence or hurdles, and it takes you a year. God forbid you don't have a family crisis and you have to make that a priority and you don't get the project done. You see on Homes Under the Hammer, you see auction properties, they don't finish till they come back a year later and they still haven't started stripping the wallpaper. That's because something's come up. You always need to be sure that the market can change as well, and it does in many areas. So you can't be Mystic Meg, but have an idea and put in that contingency that, well, what would happen if there was a downturn of £20,000 in the area for what, I don't know, they were putting a new nuclear power plant that's just been agreed. I know that's the extreme case, but always be contingent, because property is risky to some degree.
Yeah, and I think it's even more, it's riskier, or more, you've got a lot more at risk if you're trying to go for a short-term strategy. But if you're in a long-term strategy, then I think the risk is a lot less, because long term, you can't really lose out with property, and the facts tell you that.
Agreed.
So,
and we're still in it.
we're still in it. And so yeah, hopefully that helps, Simon. I appreciate we've gone into it quite a lot of depth, but I do hope that gives you a little bit more of an idea on exactly what the GDVs are and how you could potentially calculate. If you've got any more questions off the back of that, anyone, please do get in touch, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of a steer.
Absolutely.
So question 2 for today's podcast is going to be for James, and it's from a listener, Michael. Michael, thanks for getting in touch. Michael is from Port Issac, and Michael has asked, many people tell me that property is for the long term. Good timing. But is there actually a way to make short-term gains also? Or is this a myth? James?
Good question there, Michael. And you come from a lovely part of Cornwall. Fisherman's friend, fan over here as well. Spent many a summer over in Port Isaac. It's a lovely place. And we sort of started touching upon it in with Dan's question about the long-term game. Property flips on the short term. I mean, that's where property kind of investing originated years ago. You've got this sort of buy, renovate, refinance, which is what Dan was talking about that we do with investors. That's quite popular to create that sort of passive income. But no, it's not a myth on the short term games. You can make good money from property. I'm just going to put these figures out there, but generally, if you're doing, let's call it, a house flip, you're going to buy at X, sell at Y. If you're making somewhere between 20 and 30,000 on a 4-month 6-month worst case project. If you've got a really good team, that's probably about average. And don't forget that is pre-tax as well, because if it's not on your own residential property, then it's an investment property, so you are going to have to pay the capital gains tax. Depending how you've got it set up, it's generally sort of 20%. So you've got to minus that, and of course you need to really put a lot of value on your time. Are you going to need to be there every single day for 6 months? And suddenly that £30,000 that you've got, and you need to now knock off £6,000 for your tax on that, and you're in that £24,000, and you've spent half a year being there every day, overcoming all of the problems. Is it really worth it for you? But then you look at investors like Dan and I, although we're not flipping properties, we have joined forces. So maybe we want to go in on, you want to tie up with somebody, go on a bigger risk, and you want to, I don't know, buy 3 properties in one go on a street that have been knocked through, or it may be conversion that you're bringing back to residential, but a bigger plot. If you team up with somebody, then the profits are a lot better. But no, definitely you can do short-term games. Just remember that once you've sold that property, you've made that wonderful profit, it's in your hand after paying tax, you can do whatever you want with it. But for hindsight, to say you've just made £20,000, that's it then. Once it's gone, it's gone. As with the long-term game with buy, renovate, refinance, you can have that passive income for the rest of your life, pass it down to your younger ones after you've gone, and you keep on having the capital growth, which is really good. But definitely you can do it. I think the real key to the deal here, and Dan, I think you'll agree as well, is just buying well. Because if you can only make that £20,000, doesn't matter what you do to it, it's £20,000 after tax and everything. But if you manage to get it £30,000 less for whatever reason, and you buy well, then suddenly that 20 becomes 50. Any comments you give on that, Dan?
Yeah, again, massively, and that a lot of the profit is generally made at the purchase, isn't it?
Big time.
That is a lot. That is mainly where your profit will come, is on that purchase, unless you ride the wave really, really luckily and get you time the market perfectly. But as I say, you can never guarantee, and you're never in control of that, which is the key. So buying at the right price is your best way of making your money, I feel. So no, 100% agree. And again, it comes down to what is your goal? What do you want? Is it lumpy cash? Lumpy cash being large sums of money in your bank every 6 to 12 months. Then all right, maybe the flip is the way for you. But I see flipping property as a real high risk strategy, because you just can't guarantee the market. I bet at the minute, if you had a property that you're flipping it, you'd be laughing. You're in a great opportunity, great time. There's just so much demand. You could probably demand quite a good price. But if you can't shift that property, you're going to be sat on it for quite some time. And again, just starts eating at that profit month by month. So yeah, flipping isn't a strategy that excites me, because I'm not into the lumpy cash. I just want a consistent cash flow for a long period of time. Hence the rent's coming in, for example. But if it's lumpy cash that you want, maybe you just want a little bit of a bonus, or it's something you want to do on the side. And as James said, if you haven't paid yourself a wage, well, I would recommend paying yourself a wage every month. Okay, you're going to project manage it. If you're going to do the work, pay yourself some money to do that. Otherwise, you've just got to always remember to say pay yourself first. Yeah. Because otherwise, you are just going to be, as James said, you're going to be working on this for 6 months perhaps, and what are you going to get other than the lumpiness? But it might be that if you budget in £600 a month, a little Brucey bonus because you're only spending a couple of days on it a week or something like that, then yeah, just give yourself a little bit of money as a pat on the back, but budget that in from day one, so your refurb costs. So you've got that income, but you've also then got the profit at the back end.
Yeah, definitely. If I can give a couple of tips on this, Michael, I would say, as with any buying and selling, doesn't matter whether it's houses or whether it's televisions, you've got to know your demographic of who you're selling to, and make sure that there is demand on that particular street. That's really, really important, because as Dan just said, if you can't sell it, then it's not great news. You could then, as another exit, you could refinance it and then rent it out, and then some people do. That's it's costing them every single month. They do just rent it out. So know your market really, really well. And if you're going to be buying this property, if it's going to be on Rightmove, don't forget you, as well as thousands of other people, are going to be looking at it as well. And to get that really, making the profit at the front end is quite difficult. So maybe your strategy might be that you go off to an auction, because sometimes in auction houses you really can pick up a deal where it was supposed to be a busy auction, but for whatever reason it's not, and the lot's gone up and no one's putting any bids in, and then you just put in the bare minimum to meet the reserve. You could get yourself a really good deal there. So if it is flipping, as Homes Under the Hammer that we've seen many times, you can make some very good money doing it that way at auction. But best of luck to you, Michael. And yes, you can make money short term.
Definitely. No, thank you very much for everyone who's been involved and has been in touch. We've got a few questions actually that we haven't been able to answer today, but we endeavour to answer those in the coming weeks. So thank you very, very much for listening. Again, if you've got a question, you can get in touch with us. How?
Go to CornwallPropertyPodcast.com. On the first page there, scroll down to the bottom, send us a message that way. You can reach us on our social media platforms, as many of you do on Facebook. Send us a message that way. And then finally, you can also drop us an email on hello@CornwallPropertyPodcast.com, and it will land in Dan or James's inbox, and one of us will respond. But again, as Dan's just said, if we can't get through all of them, we will get back to you at some point. We'll never leave any question unanswered. So thank you for keeping on sending them in, guys.
Definitely. And we've got a very exciting couple of podcasts on the way over the next couple of weeks.
Can't wait.
So the next couple of podcasts we are going to be on location at one of our developments that we've just finished. Nice. So we have got a block of 5 apartments in Mevagissey that we have just finished or nearing completion of. So our next podcast is going to be a shot on location. So you can watch the YouTube video of the podcast, and we'll give you a tour around the properties and give you a little taste of the sort of things that we do and we get up to ourselves. Just obviously appreciate you've listened to us now for a good 18 podcasts and episodes, and just thought a lot of people ask about what we do and what sort of developments that we have on ourselves, obviously because we are property investors and developers ourselves as well. So we are aiming to bring property to the Cornish market, and this is the first we've got that we want to share with you, which is a block of 5 flats, 5 apartments. We've got 4 2-beds and 1 1-bed apartment, which we're going to give you a little tour through, talk you through all the things that we've done, all the hurdles we've come across, and how we are offering these up to local families for rent. So,
absolutely, I'm really excited about that. And as you'll probably agree, when you see them on the podcast, they do look fantastic. And I'm not just saying that, and we're great, we can bring that housing back. But as Dan has just said, hurdles is, that's a very light word. But I think it's good to be real and, really get into the depths and tell you about the pain that Dan and I went through with a couple of things with that. But we managed to push through, and another reason why it's good to team up with another property investor and share the risk and pain together, isn't it, Dan?
For sure, for sure. It makes you stronger.
Sure does.
Guys, that is it from us. Thank you. Please like, please subscribe. It just does help us. Any feedback you've got, constructive, would be fantastic. And it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me as well. Take care, guys. See you soon.